Introduce our guest tonight. First of all, Kelly, can you come up, join me on stage? Give it up for Kelly. Come on. So we're going to be introducing our guest, but I thought no better way. I need everybody to stand on up. We got a song cued that is going to help us really encourage our friends to come up on stage. So we brought some people, 2 couples, 4 people.
Ooh, is this on now?
We thought one special guest isn't enough. We're like, should we do 2? Should we just have one of the couple come? No. We got to have both of them come. We got to have all 4 of them come. Are you excited to meet our special guest tonight?
Woo!
Good. Do we have that cued? Let's start it. And the first couple that we're going to be announcing, this couple comes all the way from Springfield, Missouri. Can you please give it up for Sydney and Israel Lopez? Come on. Come on.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, give it up. Keep coming all the way from Bentonville, Arkansas, John and Maya Kay.
Let's go!
Check. Are you pumped? Come on. This song's hype.
Let's go!
Well, you can grab a seat. You can grab a seat. Grab a seat. Oh my goodness gracious. Wow. Wow.
I sit here.
Was that hype
fun.
or what?
Tony, do I sit?
Are you guys good? Can you
Tony,
hear him?
is this good?
Can you hear him?
Check.
Hello?
Check. Mic number 14, mic number 12, mic number 12.
He turned you off, bro, because you're talking too much.
Israel, he hasn't asked a question yet.
Hey, get ready tonight because these guys could be all over the place. I'm going to try to rein them in. Well, hey, we brought our best friends here tonight, and we're excited because we're going to be unpacking some questions that you guys texted in. And actually, we're going to provide an opportunity for you to continue to text in questions. If they can just throw that graphic or the text on the screen to give you the phone number that you can text right now. If you have any questions about friendships that you want us to unpack, feel free to go do that right now. We actually have quite a few that we're going to go off of that you guys texted in, but I might go off of some more if you ask me a good one. Come on. Well, hey, tonight we are on our 2nd week. So we started with talking about influence and friendships, and I hope that you understood and heard my heart behind it, because my heart wasn't for you to go home and say, Mom, Dad, I have the worst friends ever, and you're my only friends in life, okay? Hopefully you didn't do that. See, my encouragement to you was to really analyze the friends that you have. Analyze the influence that your friends have in your life, whether they're pushing you closer to God or further away from God. Tonight, we're going to be hearing from our friends tonight who I have been dreaming about this before I ever stepped into this role, that this would be something that I'd get to do. And Kelly and I have the honor and privilege of having these guys up here. And to just have people up here like this, I know for you guys, it doesn't paint the whole story. You don't get to see all the behind the scenes of how we became friends and the things that led up to this point that have influenced our lives. I can tell you honestly that Kelly and I would not be standing up here if it wasn't for these guys. I pray and hope that you guys have friends like these guys up here. That's my hope. And my question for you guys, just to kick things off, I want them to get to know a little bit about you guys. So can you tell us more about yourselves a little bit and answer this question? Well, first, we heard where you're from. What are you doing? Current occupation, or I know you guys are 2 very different streams of ministry, but both going after God. Tell us a little bit about that. And then also tell us, how did you first meet Kelly and I? Whoever wants to start.
Can you hear me? Okay. Well, my name is Israel, like Tony said. I am from North Carolina, and I actually was born in Mexico. So it's a whole different country. Thanks, Angel. But I was born in Mexico, but I grew up here in North Carolina. And so a little bit about us. We got married last year, so we are 1 year in marriage. Come on.
Come on, let's go.
And we don't have any kids, but we have one German Shepherd, and her name is Priscilla. Let's go. Yeah, she's our favorite dog. But anyways, so what we're doing, just so that way you guys know, we are going to be missionaries to the country of El Salvador.
Let's go.
And so,
come on.
we are currently itinerating, which basically means going to speak to churches, meet people, and we are just kind of traveling all over the world, not world, but all over the country. And but how we met Tony and Kelly, it was a little bit different. So we met Kelly at a different time, but I met Tony when I met John, and it was on the way to Colorado. So we were at James River College.
Yo, he was weird.
Yeah.
This
Me
guy
or
was
him?
weird. No, this guy.
Israel.
They both say I
Thank
was
you.
weird, okay? And I'm okay with that because I am. But she's the weirdest of the group, and we all say that.
That's not true.
Okay, so we were on our way to Colorado. I was really mad that Tony and John were in the car with me because I was a second-year student. They were technically a first-year student at the college. I was so mad. I didn't talk to them the whole car ride, the whole 10 hours, not a single word.
He sat on his phone in the corner talking to Sydney for literally like 8 hours straight.
And
Spanish.
both Sid and
we're
Israel
like,
speak
is this
fluent
guy
Spanish.
possessed? What is
So-
happening? Yeah.
Does this work? Hello. He kept telling me, guys, Sydney, these guys are so weird. They're so annoying. They won't stop talking. I don't want to be here with them. He was complaining the entire
I
trip.
was so mad. And so when we got there, I was kind of forced to talk to them, meet them, kind of, get to know them a little bit better. And so I accidentally played Tony's drum set, which I didn't know till later, but he kind of got frustrated about it because I'm a drummer too. So I'm over here testing his drum set, and he's over here like, what are you doing? This is not your drum set, But he didn't say that to me. But it was kind of like a weird encounter, right? Like I didn't want to talk to him. But looking out, here we are.
The
We love
Lord
each
does
other.
miracles, people.
Yeah.
The Lord
That's
does
it.
miracles.
Love it. What about you guys?
Do you want me to go? Yeah, John and Maya Cates, we are the youth pastors at a church in Northwest Arkansas called Northwest Church. We just started there in May. Before that, we were at a church plant in Destin, Florida. If you've ever been to Destin, it's beautiful. We lived there and literally less than half a mile from the beach. It was incredible. My wife is the children's pastor also at the same church for ages 0 through kindergarten. And so we love ministry. The way we met Tony, I met Tony, we went to college together. It was super chill. The first time Tony and I ever talked, he gave me a ride to the apartments that we were living at, and things got deep like way too quick. Like I started sharing things, and we talked in the car for like 30 minutes just randomly. We had never met each other. And then Kelly, she went to Evangel, and I think I met Kelly just through Tony, through experiences and hanging out and playing some different board games and stuff. And so that's kind of how we met these guys.
Yeah. And so, like I said, this only paints a small picture for you. But for example, that scenario that John unpacked a little bit literally was a 30-second drive from the church building to our apartment building, was just down the road. And he's like, hey, bro, did you need a ride or did I need a ride? You need a ride. Okay. Yeah, you're in the old car. Yeah. And so I'm like, hey, bro, literally drove 30 seconds down. And I had never talked to him before past a little hello or something small talk wise. So I didn't know anything about him. And we were just making small talk at the beginning of our conversation on the drive. But all of a sudden, it got deep literally from 0 to 100. And it was all because John, I don't know if it was, if it was something that just you felt comfortable or whatever, literally opened up his whole life story to me. All the junk, everything he went through was completely vulnerable with me. And that sparked something that I'd never experienced before. I'd never experienced someone so vulnerable and open so quickly. And that started something that I realized I needed in my life that I had before, but not in a while. And for these guys, the similar scenario happened. Yes, we met back. Funny story in Denver. We started out hating each other, apparently, and then we found out that we liked each other. But we were at John and Maya's house a few months after that point. And Israel and I went outside and we got in our car because I pulled them aside because I knew I needed to share what was going on in my life to someone because there was just junk going on. I needed to share it with something because it just started boiling up. And I pulled Israel aside. We sat in our car. If you can picture this memory, I just opened up. I started crying and just told him about what was happening. And he hugged me, he encouraged me, and he prayed for me. And let me tell you this, if you don't have people in your life that can hug you, encourage you, and pray for you, you need to find some people that'll do that for you. Because these people up here are people that we have gone through lots of great times, lots of laughs together, but also times where we've been crying and it's been messy. And there are times when I found out, for example, that my mom lost her job right after she found out and she was crying on the phone and I couldn't do anything but just cry and break down right when I was outside the front door to John Maya's house with everyone inside. And they were all playing games, but they saw me come in and they stopped and like, hey, what's going on? And they encouraged and prayed for me as I was bawling and just opening up to them. You need friends that will do that in your life. You need friends that will do that in your life. And so I'm gonna start off with the first question. And this is someone who texted in last Wednesday, actually, that I put to the top of the list because I think it's very important. And something that we talked about last Wednesday. This is the first question I opened up to you guys. How do I influence my friends closer to Jesus? How do I influence my friends closer to Jesus? Anyone can go for that.
Yeah, so everyone in here is an influencer in some type of way. You carry influence with your friends, you carry influence in your family, and you carry influence at school. Whether you like to carry influence or not, you do. And, you know, as Tony sent these, I think this is so valid and very needed at this time for students because you have to influence the world without being influenced by the world. And so the one thing, it's a shameless plug for Tony and Kelly as your youth pastors, but one thing that I know, if you want to influence your friends, you need to serve in church together. That is how our friendship up here, all six of us, that's how we grew. We served in church together. We were at events, we were at youth, we were doing all of these different things together. And we shared a common goal. We shared common values, and that's important. But it's very important that you serve the church together, whether that's here at Cedar Rapids or if you have a home church on a Sunday, serve the church together. If you want to influence your friends, serve with your friends.
Awesome. You guys have anything else to add?
It'd be hard to top off John's answers always because he's a good guy. I love him. Anyways, the question is how do I influence my friends closer to Jesus? Okay. Do you have an answer? You have an answer. No, I would say that, like John was saying, that each and every one of us is an influencer, whether we like it or not. And what I know is that we all have a circle of influence, right? So kind of, I don't know if this, I'm gonna just talk, okay? So every one of us, like there's people that Tony and Kelly and we can't reach that are in your schools, that are in your homes, families, and God calls us to influence the people that are in our circle of influence. And whether that's family, I know that for me, God has been speaking to me that I'm supposed to be reaching the lost, right? Whether that's through missions or just through caring for someone or loving them. And I have to do that just by going to the people that are like right there, right in front of me, whether that's your brother or sister or your friend, but bring them closer to God through the word. It's simple as that. I know that, can you help me? We do this as a team.
Okay,
And she has some good wisdom, guys.
Okay, well, I don't know. I'm not going to finish your sentence because I don't know where you were going with that. But I do think that there are some practical ways that we can influence our friends for Jesus. And one of them is to obviously pray for them. And that can be at home whenever the Lord brings them to your mind. Or if you know that they're struggling, take time and pray with them. I mean, that will mean the world to somebody, even if they're not Christian. The majority of people will say yes if you ask, can I pray for you? And so I think that's important. And like Tony was talking about, like if somebody is visibly struggling, be a listening ear and encourage them, and that will influence them for Jesus.
I thought of something. This is what I was going for, okay? So I see our lives as a billboard. I don't know if you guys have heard of this. Maybe you have. But you know how there's two types of billboards, right? There's some that lights shine onto the billboard, and there's some where are electronic that are LED and that lights shine out from the billboard. So we should be the ones that are shining out, not being the light of the world being shining onto us.
Great.
So
That's
we
awesome.
should be like the billboard that are the ones, thank you, the ones that are, shining out to the light. Be influencers, not be influenced by.
Yeah.
Like a little metaphor.
It's awesome. That's great. I love those answers. And the question isn't if you're influencing or not. Influencing is happening in your friendships, whether you see it right now or not. The question is that influence pushing you or that other person closer to Jesus or further away? And so I love that. The next question that I have is a two-part question, actually. The first part, I love this. Someone asks, how do I know if my friendship is toxic in my life? And secondly, how do I remove or distance a toxic friend from my life?
So I'll speak to the first one. How do I know if a friendship is toxic? I would say plain and simple, if things that they are doing is harmful to your relationship with God, then it's most likely a toxic friendship. So you need to find those friends that are pushing you, just like Tony said, pushing you closer to God, pushing you in your relationship with God, getting you out of your comfort zone, things like that.
Yeah, so I wrote something down this. Are they causing you to miss church? Are they causing you to disrespect your parents or adults? Those are two things that you practically can gauge in a relationship. Are they asking you to do things that are against biblical principles, and are they causing you to lash out or react in a way that's not biblical? Those are two ways that you can figure out if someone is toxic or not in your life. Are they influencing you in a good way or a bad way? And that's for you to decide. But the last thing is, do you have to be a different person around them? If you can't be who you are here at Cedar Rapids First Youth on a Wednesday night with your friends who are at school, they're toxic. If you can't live your life out loud for Jesus, then you really don't need to be around them. That's my opinion.
I would also like to add to another question to ask yourself is, do they make you feel good about yourself, or do you, and not that friends always need to be like boosting your ego, not that kind of good about yourself, but do you leave hanging out with these friends feeling worse about yourself? Because I've been in friendships where I have to watch everything that I do with them or watch what I say, and I leave feeling like I'm wrong or I'm bad or I'm something negative. And if that's the case, they're definitely not benefiting your well-being, and that is very toxic.
The second question was how to distance, right, or separate yourself. So I'm a firm believer that life is not fair. And sometimes there are going to be times in your life where you can't avoid hurting someone else because you can't be friends with them. That's just how life is. I preach this to my students all the time. Life isn't fair. And if you need to protect yourself for your relationship with God, that's the priority. And so life isn't fair all the time, but I wrote down this. You can influence them without letting them influence you. You can separate yourself in such a way from a toxic person without letting them influence you still. You can be around them and still be away from them, if you know what I mean. You can be in the same place, you can speak life over them, you can encourage them, but you don't have to be friends with them.
That's great. Yeah, I love it. We got a lot of questions about that, about toxicity in friendships. What do I do? How do I identify that? And I think those are some great answers to help us unpack. And you might be saying, well, why does this always keep pointing back to your relationship with God? If they affect my relationship with God, whatever. Can I tell you that your relationship with God is the most important relationship in your life? And if you don't realize that now, you will get to a point where you are at the darkest valley in your life. And even in the darkest valley, God's light shines and you'll see it. But we don't want you to wait until you're down there to realize that you need God. We want you to realize now that, hey, the most important relationship and the reason why we're doing this is to draw back to the main goal and focus, which is Jesus. So next question I have for you guys. I love it. This person writes, how do I encourage vulnerability and accountability with my friends?
So you actually just shared the story at the beginning of you and John in the car. I think just being able to create those spaces with your friends and opening up to them as well. Because when, like you said, John opened up to you, then that created vulnerability in you to be able to open up back to him. And then you guys were able to come to a point where you were like, hey, we're both struggling. We're both going through something. Let's work through this together. Let's keep each other accountable. And I think that's just the most important thing to do.
I will add something to this. We had so much fun when we all lived in the same place. Like, we were playing games probably 3 or 4 nights out of the week at least. But there was also a lot of nights where we were like, okay, let's not play games tonight and let's just talk. Like, let's just hang out and talk. And I think that right there just promotes that vulnerability and that time to be, like, just to become closer in your friendship with them. And then just trust, like, you have to gain that trust. So when somebody tells you something, you have to keep it between you two. Like, it's not something where you're going to go, obviously they're not going to trust you to tell you things if you go and just talk about it with everybody. Like, there has to be a trust there that you guys keep it within your group.
Yeah, that's awesome. And something I thought about too, there might be some of you tonight that are saying, why aren't they vulnerable? I just want them to be vulnerable. I want us all to be, sharing about all the stuff that we've done bad or the stuff that we need help with or whatever. And my question to you is, have you been vulnerable to them? Have you opened up to them? So often we want to see the vulnerability come to us, but have we been the ones who've actually opened up and said, hey, I know you're my close friend in life and you keep me accountable. This is how I messed up. This is how I need prayer. This is whatever the case may be. I love it. Next question for you. This person writes, what should I be looking for in a solid, godly friendship? What should I be looking for?
I wrote down 5 questions. I don't love answering questions with questions, but I'm not here just to give you answers. I'm here to cause you to wrestle with your own questions. And the first question is, do they share the same values as you? Okay, if you want solid, godly relationships with friends, you have to have the same values as them. Okay, and those values, if you're a Christian, come from the Bible. Okay, it's the 10 Commandments and it's Jesus's teachings. You have to have the same values. The other questions are, do they encourage you to read the Bible? Okay, do they actively pray with you or just say they are going to pray with you? Because there are 2 different things. Okay, I can come to you and I can say, hey, I'm going to pray for you tonight. And then what do I probably don't pray, right? I probably go home, I'm playing video games, I'm hanging out, like I just forget about it. Or there are gonna be friends who are like, hey, can I pray with you right now? Can I lay my hands on you and pray with you? That's a godly and solid friend that you can have in your life. The last thing is, do they live their faith out loud? Do you know a Christian? Do you know they are a Christian before they tell you they're a Christian? If you want to know, do they bear the fruits of the Spirit? Okay, are they kind? Are they gentle? Do they have self-control? All of those things, you need to see that in somebody if you want to have a godly and solid relationship with somebody.
Anyone else have an answer for that? Yeah, the question was, what should I be looking for in a solid, godly relationship, friendship?
I think something that comes to mind is how often we say we want those godly friendships, but then when we're in a friendship, we don't talk about God. We don't talk about our faith with each other. And that's something that, honestly, before these people up here, I lacked in my life. Like, I had people that believed in God, went to church with me, but we didn't really talk about our faith. Now, when we all got together, it was like, hey, I'm struggling with this. I need help with this. And the response that I would get is like, well, have you gone to Jesus about it? Here's what the Bible says. Here, like, faith, responses in faith and rooted in like the values of Christianity. So if you want a godly friend, you have to talk about God. And if you can't talk about your faith with them, then maybe you need to reevaluate this friendship.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And going back to vulnerability even a little bit, ask yourself this or process this with your friendships. When you open up to your friends about stuff that's gone wrong, how do they respond to it? How do they respond to the junk going on that you open up? Do they say, oh, it's stupid, bro. Why are you going through that? Do they discourage you when you open up? Or do they encourage you? Do they pray for you? Do they encourage you to get in the word, or maybe even show you something that's helped them in the past from the Bible, whatever it is? I think I love those responses. Next question for you. This person texted in, how do I settle conflict within my close friendships? How do I settle conflict within my close friendships?
Settle conflict with love. Nothing is going to get settled if you do it out of anger, in bitterness, or in selfishness. Whenever we get in conflict in our marriage, or just even, this is in any relationship with your parents, you got to respond in love and encouragement. What does the Bible say? Love covers a multitude of sin. When Tony came to me and was vulnerable with me, and that's a different area, but even whenever we had conflict or we were in disagreement, we just knew that when we loved each other, and at the end of the day, it was going to be fine. Like, we were going to come back, we were going to still be friends, and we were going to love each other no matter what came about of the situation.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. I think the enemy really likes when we're in conflict with people because he likes the division between people. And so to be able to look at a friendship and say, you know what, this problem is so small and it really doesn't matter all that much. Let's get past that and love each other. And yeah. So.
Keep the main thing, okay? If you want to settle conflict, you got to be truthful. You got to be honest with somebody, but keep the main thing. I wrote this down because I really believe this. At your age, there's not going to be very many things that should separate you from friends. If they're ungodly, you need to separate yourself a little bit. But at your age, you will not have anything that is too serious to ruin a good friendship, okay? And hear my heart on this, because it's super important that we have conflict in our lives, because if we don't learn how to handle conflict in your future marriage or with your future spouse, you're not going to know. So it's very important at this age to learn how to be truthful, learn how to be honest, but keep the main thing, and that's your relationship with Jesus. If I'm going to another believer, if I'm going to Israel or Tony as a brother in Christ, we got to keep the main thing. I can't go at Tony and say, man, I'm so mad at you, I'm frustrated with you, and accuse him of sinning and tear him down. I got to go to him and say, hey, man, I really know that you have a good heart, you have a pure heart, I love you, but this is how you offended me, or this is how I feel like I've offended you, and we need to solve this because it's not right. So keep the main thing, and that's Jesus.
I also have something super simple, super quick then. I know that you guys love your phones. I love my phone too. you cannot settle conflict over text messaging. That is something so simple, it's not really spiritual. You cannot settle conflict over text messaging. If I was upset with Tony about something and I just texted him, that's gonna go downhill real fast. And like half of those problems could have been avoided had I gone up to him. Because over text, like I might say, hey, I'm really upset with you, but it comes off as like, I am so mad at you right now. And it's just like misunderstandings make everything worse. So approach conflict in person. Don't text them.
Okay, I've got a question for everybody. Who is good at solving conflict? Like, who is good at confronting conflict? Okay, there's a couple. I am not good. I actually thought that I was good at like resolving conflict until I met these people. They just like, because when you're gonna have good friends, they also, they give you like criticism, but it's positive criticism. Anyway, we have had conflict between our group of friends. I mean, that's just the reality of it when you're really close to people. But something that I've learned from specifically Tony and John, because they're both like pretty good at like confronting conflict. John, if you're like mad about something and you're just like ranting about it, he will immediately ask you, well, have you told them? And you're like, no.
If you haven't communicated that you're frustrated with someone, you don't have a right to be frustrated.
That's what he'll tell you. And that's like, bam. I'm like, ugh, I'm still mad though. But it's fine. I'm like, okay, well, you make a good point. So maybe I'll consider it. But I don't really know yet because I still don't like conflict. But then Tony, on the other hand, it's kind of like the same thing a little bit. But he's like, even when the conflict is there and it's already present, he's like, what are you not saying? Because everything you're feeling right now, you need to say it so that we can actually work it out. Like, don't push anything under the rug. And that's like these two, like that's kind of how our conflict, whatever's happened, like that's how it's been solved, is with those two like principles that we've kind of held on to.
And just remember, it's not one against the other. It's both of you guys working against the conflict.
That's good.
Just remember that. It's not me against Tony. It's us two against the conflict.
They said a lot of good stuff. Something that just came into mind, I was going to move on, but sometimes we think when we push away conflict or a tough conversation, we think that we're doing the other person justice. We think that we're helping the scenario. I'm going to give you a wake-up call. It might be hard to hear. You're being selfish by doing that. You are being selfish by not bringing up the conversation because in fact, you don't care for that person enough to bring up the conflict that needs to happen. And I didn't learn that until these guys, because like they said, conflict has happened in our friendships, even recently, that stuff has happened. But what I love about this group here is that we bring it up, and we're not afraid to bring it up because we know, in the words of the theologian Kelly Clarkson, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And so, anyways, moving on. Love it. So next question, I love this. Someone wrote in recently, how do I handle losing friends that move away or that distance themselves from me?
Don't buy a dog.
What'd you say?
I said, don't buy a dog.
Buy a dog.
Don't buy a dog.
That's a really good question. Because, just to give you guys all a backstory, for about 3 or 4 nights a week, for about a year, we hung out at Maya and I's house like every single night. We played games, we hung out, we played worship music, we did a bunch of things together. And there were times where like we were together like 7 days in a row. Like that's what we did. And then Maya and I, we ended up moving to Destin, Florida, as I was saying earlier. And this was one of the hardest things that probably, in our friendship, that was the hardest thing that Maya and I have had to go through, because when you realize that you're not going to be able to spend every night with your friends, or you're not going to be able to go over and hang out at their house and play board games, or do whatever you do with friends, go to McDonald's at like late night, whatever you do, when you realize that you're not going to be able to do those things, it hurts, right? And so one of the things that Maya and I, we did, because we have access to technology and because you guys are the most plugged in generation of all time, there's FaceTime, and then there's Zoom, and there's Google Hangout. I think that's what they call it.
These are the moments you can love your phone.
Yeah, that's, I mean, seriously, because from halfway across the nation, Maya and I were able to FaceTime our friends, and we were still able to connect and still be vulnerable. There were many times where me and Tony, you know, as youth pastors, I'm calling him up and I'm like, you know, like, hey, this is what we're doing. What do you think about it? You know, and so because you guys have access to resource, it's gonna be okay. I promise it's going to be okay. You're going to make other friends, but you can still be best friends with your best friend because of what you have access to.
Well, and I think it makes the times that you meet back up so much like sweeter, so much better. I've kind of felt like that. So we all haven't been together just as six in over a year. And so like just the time that we've had together this week, it's been really just sweet and fun. So.
Well, because what John didn't mention was they moved to Florida, and 2 days later, Tony and I moved here. Well, Tony moved here and I moved to Wisconsin, and now I'm here. So this all happened within a week. Like we all were together in one city and then across the country from each other. And as they mentioned, like it was hard. But like John said, you get to love your phones and there's technology and you get, something I always tell, I don't know, I've had conversations with Sydney and I was like, we might be physically different from each other, or distant from each other, physically distant, but we don't have to be emotionally distant or spiritually distant. Like we can still pray for each other. We still have conversations. And like Maya said, it is so much sweeter when we're all back together.
Okay, me and Israel have to add to this conversation because we didn't move away. We got left in Missouri, which isn't that fun of a state. It's kind of, well, I'm not gonna say it.
Missouri.
Yeah, it's Missouri. So anyway, they moved away, and like they said, within like almost to the day of each other. So that was like for me, I'm like, well, at least you're gonna go make new friends. Well, I'm stuck here, and I've already met everybody here, and I don't really like them very much. And so I'm like, this kind of stinks. And so we're there, and we're like, man, this is really hard. Like, we have to go back to life how it was, but without them. And I think that was very, very difficult for me and Israel at first, because it was a huge transition. Like they said, we went from seeing them almost every single day to not at all. So it was like we had to find other ways to enjoy, to have community. And a lot of that went from, we got really involved in church and we started getting way more involved in the youth, and we met other youth leaders, and we just had to really step out and talk to people. And we've met a couple other friends, and they're not quite like these people, but
Not at all.
But we do really love them. And we do have more of a community than we had before. And you just really have to step out and make an effort to have community.
Was the other half of the question friends that like distance from you? Because I feel like those are two different things. Moving away, which we've covered, but then there's friends that distance themselves from you. And like, I personally can speak to that. That happened to me my 8th grade year. I had a group of friends, and all of a sudden it was like they were all still friends, and I was over here left alone with zero explanation of why I wasn't invited or why I couldn't sit with them at lunch. And that was hard. Like, when you say, I went home and I was like, Mom, you're my only friend right now. My mom is one of my best friends, but like, it was real. I did not have friends, and I did not know why. But then it really, unfortunately at that time, I wasn't a strong Christian. Like, I did not have a relationship with Jesus. I think having a relationship with Jesus would have changed that whole season completely. Because kind of like the song that we just sang, like when we're down and there's nobody around us, is Jesus enough for us? And if the answer is no, then we might need to do some self-evaluating. But I think that that's a really important aspect of the question to answer. So.
Yeah, I love it. And I love what you just ended with, because you might have gone through a scenario or currently going through something where either your friends have left you, or I know there's some in the room that are going to be moving away soon, or you've had people that have had to move away. For us, it was a wake-up call to realize, are our friends the only ones leading our lives? Are our friends the only ones that we're going to when stuff comes up? Or are we replacing our friends with really the true relationship that we have or should have with Jesus to fill those gaps in? So I have one more question for you guys, just for the sake of time. We don't have too much time to be on this, but I want to end it this way. I love this question. I don't know who asked it, but it says, how do I make solid, lifelong friends during middle school and high school? How do I make these friends during middle school and high school related to these guys here?
We've all had different middle school and high school experiences. Like across the board, all of us are different. The one thing that I believe, if you want to make solid friendships and solid relationships in middle school and high school, one, go to church with them, okay? Invite them to church with you. Get them to Cedar Rapids First Youth on a Wednesday night. Worship with them, lift your hands with them, and pray with them. If you want to have good friends, that's what you need to do. The second thing, you need to get involved and you need to make memories. If you're just sitting at home and doing nothing every single night of the week, it's going to be very hard for you to make meaningful and lasting relationships. The reason that I have the relationships I do with my high school friends and even my college friends is because we went and did stuff together. And if you're in middle school and you're like, I don't have a driver's license, I can't just go out and do things, that's okay. Invite them over. Invite them to come to your place, play video games, cook some brownie or bake some brownies. Like, do something together to make memories, because if you're not making memories, then you're not really living your life with somebody. You're just doing stuff on your own. And so that's how I view, if you want to have good friends that last a long time, be involved and make memories with them.
Anyone else?
You want me to go again?
Repeat the same thing you just said.
I think, yeah, kind of what he said, just being intentional with people. I think intentionality is really important when it comes to friendships. Because if we're not being intentional, then, I mean, what are you doing in your friendship? So, but also another thing, don't be discouraged if you don't find lifelong friendships in middle school or high school. Because I can say for myself, I don't know that I maybe have like one, but really like these guys I met in college. And I honestly can say that I have a lot of college lifelong friends. And some of you will have lifelong friends from middle school, high school, maybe even elementary school. But for those of you that maybe don't be discouraged by that.
Don't be discouraged. I love that, because for me personally, in middle school and high school, I hung out with the wrong crowd. Obviously I had a few Christian friends, but I lived a life where I went to church, but I also would go with my other friends and did things in the world. Like just being vulnerable with you guys, right? But these people that are up here, I can say for a fact that they are a blessing from God. Because God will always be providing in seasons. And as I transition into a new season, into a season of college, like my old friends, they were distant from me physically, and also like they were just not the friends that I needed to have. And I can speak for Sydney. She had some friends that literally left her behind, like literally like just said, you're not part of us anymore. And God placed these 4 people into our lives and filled and provided that is what we needed. Like these people up here are what we would say are just a blessing. And so don't be discouraged, because these people are the people that we found in college. Like we didn't know, like I had to move to a whole different state to meet these people. And so did Tony and Kelly. So just remember that God, in the season, whatever season you guys are in, God is going to bring someone to your life.
That's awesome. And some of you tonight might be saying, well, I just don't have that close friend. I want to have that close friend, but I don't have it. Have you been praying for that friend? Have you been praying to ask God to bring that friend in your life? The Bible says you have not because you ask not. have you been praying for that person to come? Because the Bible says that we're not meant to do life alone. We're meant to do life together in community. That's the word that I believe is really a culture shifter for this youth group, is to live life in community, that we are a community that's inclusive. So hey, can you guys give a big hand for our guest speakers? Come on. That's awesome. You guys can actually head back to your seats. We're going to transition with service. We have one more thing left for you guys tonight. First, did that help some of you guys tonight? Was that encouraging? I hope that helped you guys. I hope God spoke to you in some way. I hope you were taking notes or write something down from tonight. Because typically, I've heard it said the shortest pencil is better than the longest memory.